Ethan Cole stepped off the transport shuttle, taking his first cautious steps into Zerath Spaceport, a bustling hub in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Ships of all shapes and sizes hovered above, each painted with colors and symbols that marked countless alien species. Ethan, a human, stood out immediately. He was smaller and physically weaker than almost every alien around him, but his calm eyes and observant nature made him seem different. He had come to Zerath for a diplomatic mission, representing Earth in the Galactic Federation, but things had already begun strangely. Alien customs officers eyed him suspiciously. His uniform was standard Federation issue, neat and practical, yet some of the taller, horned or tentacled species looked at him as if he were a curiosity, or worse, a joke. "Step aside. Human!" A gray-skinned alien with multiple eyes barked, his voice sharp and mechanical. "All humans must submit to a full inspection." Ethan held up his hands calmly. "Of course," he said. His voice was soft but steady, carrying a quiet confidence. "I'll cooperate fully." The alien began scanning him with a device that hummed and beeped. Ethan noticed it was sensitive to subtle temperature changes. A minor thought crossed his mind. Every alien technology had a limitation, a weak point. He made a mental note. A sudden commotion erupted nearby. A group of aliens was arguing loudly, pointing fingers and making gestures too fast for Ethan to understand. In the chaos, an object, something like a small energy vial, rolled under his foot. When he kicked it gently out of the way, it lit up, causing a bright flare. "That human!" one of the larger aliens shouted. "He attacked the scanner!" Ethan blinked. No, I didn't." But before he could explain, more officers arrived. Within moments, he was restrained in alien energy cuffs and escorted toward a massive transport shuttle labeled Galactic Detention Complex. His mind raced. Humans were new here, and misunderstandings could escalate quickly. Yet he remained calm, analyzing every detail of the cells, the guards, and the transport's movement. The shuttle doors hissed shut. Inside, the other prisoners were already visible. They were a mix of species Ethan had only read about in Federation records: towering brutes with scales, delicate winged beings with glowing eyes, and gelatinous creatures that seemed to ripple with thought. The moment they saw him, a low murmur spread across the room. Some whispered, some laughed, a few simply stared. "You're small," a horned alien muttered to another. "He'll be easy to break." Ethan tilted his head slightly, noting their expressions. He realized something immediately. They had no idea how dangerous humans could be, not in brute force, but in strategy. And he was determined to demonstrate it subtly, without risking a full confrontation. The prisoners were herded into a holding area, a large circular room with metallic walls and a high ceiling. Alien guards patrolled above on suspended tracks, their eyes glowing red. Ethan was placed between two burly aliens who immediately began jeering. "Hey, soft one," one growled. "Did your species even fight before?" Ethan remained silent, studying them. He observed how they moved, the way their limbs reacted, the small gaps in their armor. He could already see how to turn their arrogance into opportunity. But he knew patience was key. Humans had survived and thrived against far stronger species before. This was no different. One of the aliens, taller and horned, leaned closer. "We should crush him," it hissed. Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm, measured. "I don't think that's necessary." The alien blinked, confused by the lack of fear. "What did you say?" "I said," Ethan repeated, "there's a better way for both of us. I can help you understand the system here, if you're willing to listen." The alien laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You human? Teach us? You're small, weak, soft-skinned. You wouldn't last 5 minutes out there." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe I'd last longer than you expect." The alien scoffed and walked away, calling his friends. They circled Ethan, trying to intimidate him. They nudged him with their massive arms, mocked his height, and laughed at his gestures. Ethan noticed the energy cuffs were slightly sensitive to pressure. With subtle movements, he ensured they pressed against the aliens in just the wrong spots when he shifted his weight. Small discomforts, nothing extreme, but enough to confuse them. He also began listening. The aliens spoke among themselves in a rapid code-like language. By paying attention to tone and repetition, Ethan picked up patterns. Even without knowing the words, he could predict their actions. That observation would be useful. Hours passed. The aliens' teasing continued. They tried pushing him, challenging him to fights, mocking his human frailty. Each time, Ethan responded in ways that seemed harmless but created small disruptions. A misstep here, a confusing gesture there. Slowly, frustration built among the bullies. Finally, one of them tried to throw him into the wall. Ethan twisted mid-fall, using the alien's momentum to trigger an accidental tripwire nearby. The wall panel slid open briefly, revealing a containment breach alarm. Lights flashed red. The aliens froze, realizing they had triggered the security system themselves. Guards rushed in from above. The bullies tried to blame Ethan, but the guards saw the evidence clearly. The human's calm, precise movements had actually prevented a minor disaster from becoming a larger one. Ethan didn't boast. He simply stood, composed, as the guards secured the area. The other prisoners looked at him differently now. Whispers spread quickly. The small, seemingly weak human had brains and courage beyond anyone's expectations. Some aliens, curious and cautious, edged closer, wanting to understand him better. Ethan smiled faintly to himself. This was exactly what he had planned. Human strength was not measured only in size or physical power. Observation, strategy, and courage could turn even the most dangerous situations into opportunities. The horned bully who had tried to push him earlier approached last. This time, he was quieter, less confident. "You survived," he muttered. "Yes," Ethan replied calmly. "And you might survive too if you learn something from this." The alien grunted and walked away, confused by both Ethan's words and the calm authority in his tone. It was the first crack in the facade of arrogance that the other prisoners had shown. Later, as night fell in the detention complex, Ethan lay on the small human-sized bunk, thinking. He studied the guards' routines, the cell locks, the movement of the other prisoners. He noted weaknesses, but also opportunities for alliances. Humans had a way of surviving where brute strength alone failed. In this alien jail, he would do the same, without a single fight that caused real harm. By the time he closed his eyes, a new understanding had spread among the prisoners. The small, soft-spoken human was not to be mocked or bullied. He had already begun to earn a reputation, quietly and effectively. And for the first time, some aliens who had scoffed earlier found themselves wondering, could humans really be more capable than we thought? In the silence of the night, Ethan smiled. Tomorrow, the real lessons would begin. The morning light filtered through the metal bars of the Galactic detention complex. Ethan Cole stretched, careful not to disturb the larger aliens in the adjacent cells. Though he had slept little, his mind was sharper than ever. The previous day's events had shifted the atmosphere in the prison. Whispers followed him wherever he went, some curious, some cautious, and a few grudgingly respectful. Ethan knew he had to act carefully. Being clever was not enough. He needed to be strategic. Alien strength far surpassed his own. But humans had a way of using intelligence, patience, and observation to overcome even the largest obstacles. He began by observing the guards' patrol patterns. Alien guards were formidable, but predictable. They moved in set circuits, stopping at certain checkpoints and scanning areas with light pulses from their helmets. Ethan noticed small blind spots, a few meters behind the central control console, and a short period after a patrol passed a security node when the cameras recalibrated. These small details would be useful later. For now, he focused on building a reputation of calm confidence. A group of aliens approached him, the same ones who had tried to bully him before. The tallest, horned alien, named Krath, leaned against the bars separating their cells. "Human," he said. "You survived yesterday. Lucky, perhaps, or clever. Either way, I am curious." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe a little of both," he replied. His voice was calm, almost soothing. "But luck without observation is only chance. Humans prefer to understand the system." Krath scoffed. "We will see if your cleverness lasts." Ethan simply nodded and returned to studying the walls, listening to the murmurs of other prisoners. Some of them watched silently, intrigued by his calm demeanor. They were beginning to realize that he was not weak. The day's first challenge arrived unexpectedly. One of the alien prisoners, a gelatinous creature called Moro, had accidentally spilled a chemical near the power conduits in the holding area. Sparks flew, and a faint smoke began to rise. Chaos erupted immediately. Alien guards shouted commands in their harsh mechanical tones. Some of the larger aliens panicked, unsure of what to do. Ethan stepped forward. "Everyone, step back from the conduit!" he shouted, using the universal hand signal for caution that he had observed from other alien species. Some turned toward him, confused by the human's boldness. He moved carefully, analyzing the chemical's reaction. He had studied basic chemistry on Earth and had memorized many reactions. He realized the spill could ignite if disturbed, but there was a small piece of equipment nearby, a retractable shield panel that could cover the conduit. He gestured for Moro to roll it into place. The gelatinous prisoner understood immediately, his amorphous body shifting quickly to follow Ethan's instructions. In moments, the immediate danger was contained. Sparks died down, smoke vanished, and the holding area remained intact. The guards arrived just as Ethan was stepping back. Their eyes glowed red as they scanned the area. "Human," one said, in the Alien Federation's common tongue. "You manage this?" Ethan nodded simply. It was a minor hazard. No one was harmed. The guards exchanged glances. A human solving a technical problem faster than the aliens themselves? It was unprecedented. Krath and the others who had been watching looked pale, or as pale as horned aliens could. After the incident, whispers spread quickly through the holding area. Ethan's cleverness was no longer a rumor. He had prevented a potential disaster using calm observation and knowledge. Even the bullies could not deny it. Later that day, the bullies decided to test him in another way. They blocked the only path to the dining area, their massive bodies forming an intimidating wall. "Move aside, human," one of them growled, "or be removed." Ethan smiled faintly. "I don't think removal is necessary," he said. The bullies laughed. "You think you can pass without trouble?" Ethan's eyes scanned the walls. He noticed a small maintenance hatch near the ceiling just above the blocked path. It was not large enough for him to climb through, but with some effort he could trigger the locking mechanism inside. As the bullies advanced, Ethan pretended to step aside. Then, with a quick movement, he activated the latch. A panel in the floor slid open beneath the bullies' feet, not enough to injure them, but enough to make them stumble and lose balance. Some fell forward, arms flailing, while others grabbed each other to avoid falling entirely. The other prisoners laughed quietly. The bullies, embarrassed and frustrated, glared at Ethan. "This isn't over, human," Krath hissed. Ethan's calm voice replied, "No, it isn't. But maybe we can make it better for all of us if we avoid unnecessary conflict." The bullies muttered angrily and stepped aside, humiliated but unharmed. Ethan's reputation grew further. It was no longer just curiosity, it was respect. The next challenge was more subtle. Ethan noticed that the food rations for all prisoners were inconsistent. Some aliens received more than others, leading to minor conflicts. He approached the guards quietly. Using logic and observation, he suggested a new distribution system, one that was fair and simple to implement. The guards were surprised at how quickly he analyzed the problem and provided a workable solution. By the end of the day, Ethan had subtly changed the dynamics of the prison. The bullies were cautious, the other prisoners curious, and the guards, though wary, respected his intelligence. That evening, as the artificial lights dimmed, Ethan walked along the corridor, observing everything. He noted the placement of cameras, the frequency of patrols, and even the timing of the food deliveries. Everything had a pattern. Humans, he thought, thrive on understanding patterns and using them to solve problems. Krath approached him again, quieter this time. "You are clever, human," he admitted grudgingly. "Perhaps more clever than we thought. But do not think your tricks will last forever." Ethan's calm smile remained. "I do not rely on tricks," he said. "I rely on observation, patience, and understanding. You might call it cleverness. I call it survival." The horned alien grunted and walked away. Some of the other prisoners followed him, whispering among themselves. Ethan realized he had earned a measure of influence without raising his voice or striking a blow. That night, Ethan reflected on what had happened. Being underestimated had been an advantage. The aliens believed humans were weak, so they made mistakes, exposed their weaknesses, and revealed opportunities. Ethan had used every moment to learn, adapt, and act when necessary. He also realized that some of the bullies were not evil. They were arrogant, accustomed to using size and strength to dominate. But arrogance could be managed with patience and intelligence, something humans excelled at. As he lay on his small bunk, Ethan thought about the next steps. The detention complex was more than just a prison. It was a lesson in alien behavior, security, and power dynamics. By observing, understanding, and acting carefully, he could not only survive but also gain respect. A soft knock on his cell panel drew his attention. A smaller alien, quiet and timid, peeked inside. "Human," it whispered. You helped with the sparks. You saved Morrow. How did you do it?" Ethan smiled gently. "I watched, I listened, and I thought about the best way to help. Sometimes thinking carefully is stronger than fighting." The alien's eyes widened. "Humans are different." "Yes," Ethan said softly. "Different, but not weak." By the time the lights dimmed fully, Ethan had formed his first quiet alliance. He had demonstrated that humans could be clever, brave, and fair, even in a place where aliens assumed they had all the power. And for the first time, the bullies hesitated before acting. They had begun to regret underestimating him, though they did not yet realize how far his cleverness could go. Tomorrow, Ethan knew, the real challenge would begin. He would need to continue observing, continue influencing, and continue proving that humans were more than what the galaxy expected. The next morning in the Galactic detention complex, Ethan Cole woke to the faint hum of alien machinery. The holding area was quieter than usual, a tension lingering in the air. Yesterday's events had changed things. The bullies, especially Krath, the horned leader, kept their distance, though their eyes followed Ethan wherever he moved. Ethan stretched and observed the room. His plan was clear. Continue gaining understanding, maintain calm, and quietly influence the other prisoners. Human patience and cleverness could turn even this alien jail into an opportunity. As he moved toward the central food dispensers, he noticed some of the smaller, timid prisoners whispering. One was a feathery-winged alien named Lyra, her glowing eyes darting nervously between the bullies and Ethan. "Human," she whispered, careful that no one overheard. You are clever. How do you know what to do?" Ethan smiled gently. "I watch and think," he said. "Sometimes the best action is the one no one expects." Lyra nodded, her feathers twitching. We want to help, but we cannot fight them." "Then we will not fight," Ethan replied calmly. "We will act together in ways they will not anticipate. Humans have a way of solving problems without violence." By the time the morning meal arrived, Ethan had gathered several small allies: Lyra, Moro the gelatinous alien, and another quiet but intelligent being named Tico, a lizard-like alien with quick reflexes and sharp thinking. Together they began observing the routines of the bullies and the guards. Krath and his companions arrived, loud and arrogant as always. They blocked the food dispensers, demanding larger rations for themselves. The smaller prisoners flinched, but Ethan remained calm. "Krath," Ethan said, stepping forward, "there is a better way for all of us. If we follow a simple system, everyone can get fair rations without conflict." Krath laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "And why should I listen to a human?" "Because," Ethan replied, "if you do not, the guards will notice the inefficiency. And inefficiency could bring trouble for everyone, including you." Krath paused, considering Ethan's words. No human had ever spoken to him like this. His pride bristled, but caution crept in. He stepped aside slightly, allowing Ethan to demonstrate his system. Within minutes, the lines moved smoothly. Food was distributed fairly. Chaos was avoided. Whispers of admiration began spreading among the other prisoners. The bullies left, grumbling, but for the first time they hesitated before intimidating anyone. Ethan had begun to influence the balance of power. By midday, the complex's communication network malfunctioned. A high-pitched alarm echoed through the corridors, signaling a system error. Guards moved quickly, trying to stabilize the situation. Many of the prisoners panicked. Ethan, observing the problem, noticed a series of misaligned panels in the maintenance corridor that could be used to temporarily bypass the malfunction. He gestured to Lyra, Moro, and Tico. "Follow me carefully," he instructed. Together, they moved quietly, avoiding detection by guards. Ethan guided the smaller allies to the misaligned panels, showing them how to activate the bypass safely. Lights flickered, and the alarm subsided, stabilizing the system before any serious damage occurred. When the guards arrived to check the system, they found the human and his small group standing calmly, the crisis averted. Their eyes glowed in surprise. One guard muttered, "Humans. Clever. Too clever." Krath watched from the sidelines, his pride stung. For the first time, he realized that brute strength alone was not enough. Ethan had outsmarted him again. Later that day, Ethan noticed the bullies planning a more direct intimidation tactic. They gathered near the small recreation area, plotting to isolate him. Ethan observed quietly, noting their plan. He also noticed a subtle detail. One of the bullies, a massive blue-skinned alien named Goran, had a habit of always checking the ceiling lights before striking. That small pattern gave Ethan an idea. When the bullies approached him, Ethan pretended to be cornered, calm and small. "What is your plan?" he asked innocently. Krath sneered. "We will teach you respect, human." As they lunged, Ethan subtly triggered a small panel overhead. A harmless burst of foam descended, covering Goran's eyes temporarily. The other bullies slipped slightly on the slick floor. Chaos ensued, and guards quickly intervened. No one was hurt, but the bullies were embarrassed and frustrated. The other prisoners erupted into quiet laughter. Ethan's calm, clever handling of the situation had turned humiliation into a lesson, showing that humans could protect themselves without violence. By evening, Ethan and his allies convened in a quiet corner. Lyra spoke first. You are changing everything. The others are starting to see humans differently." Ethan nodded. "That is the point. Humans are small, yes, but intelligence, observation, and courage matter more than size." Tico added, "We never knew anyone could do this without fighting. You lead by thinking." Moro's gelatinous form rippled with excitement. "Maybe humans are stronger than we thought," he said. Ethan smiled. "We are, not in the ways you expect, but in the ways that matter most." The next challenge came faster than expected. A minor explosion occurred in a lower maintenance corridor, sending a cloud of smoke through the complex. The bullies, panicked, tried to push past the guards to escape. Ethan, observing the panic, realized that without calm guidance, the situation could escalate into chaos. He led his small group carefully, using hand signals and quiet instructions. They guided prisoners to safety, ensuring no one was hurt. The guards were amazed. They had expected humans to panic, but Ethan had acted decisively, calmly, and effectively. Krath, watching from a distance, felt an unfamiliar emotion, fear mixed with respect. He had underestimated the human completely. The bullies' pride had blinded them, and now they had to reckon with someone smaller than them who could outthink and outmaneuver them at every turn. That night, as the artificial lights dimmed, Ethan lay on his bunk and reflected. He had survived harassment, outsmarted bullies, and even helped maintain order during crises. Humans had a reputation across the galaxy as clever, adaptable, and resilient, and he was proving it firsthand. The quiet whispers of the prisoners filled the room. Some were curious, some cautious, but all were beginning to recognize that the small human was more than a target. He was a force to respect. Krath approached again, quietly this time. "Human," he said, "perhaps you are clever, too clever." Ethan's calm voice responded, "Thank you, Krath, but cleverness is only useful if it helps everyone. That is how humans survive. That is how we earn respect." Krath grunted. "Do not think this changes everything. The next time, we may act differently." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then I will observe, adapt, and act. That is what humans do." As the lights dimmed fully, Ethan realized that the real challenge was not merely surviving bullying. It was building understanding, forming alliances, and showing that humans were not weak. And in this alien detention complex, humans could shine brighter than anyone expected. Not through violence, but through intelligence, courage, and calm leadership. He closed his eyes, thinking ahead. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, and he would be ready. The bullies were learning slowly that a human was not someone to underestimate, and some, he suspected, were beginning to regret their arrogance. The Galactic detention complex hummed with quiet activity as Ethan Cole awoke for the fourth day of his incarceration. By now, the bullies, Krath and his group, had learned to hesitate before acting. They were still arrogant, still strong, but their confidence had been shaken. Even the guards looked at him with a new measure of respect, though none openly admitted it. Ethan stretched, observing the routines of the facility. He had learned the paths of the patrols, the timing of the security systems, and the behavior of the other prisoners. Knowledge was his weapon, and patience was his shield. As he moved toward the central courtyard for the morning assembly, a sudden alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the walls, and the complex vibrated slightly. Something was wrong. Ethan's instincts kicked in immediately. The alarm was a system-wide alert. A structural failure in the lower maintenance level threatened to disable part of the life support system. Panic spread quickly among the prisoners. Some aliens shouted at each other in confusion, while others froze in fear. The guards moved swiftly, but even they looked overwhelmed. Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment humans excelled, not in raw strength, but in thinking clearly under pressure. He ran his eyes over the complex, noting the locations of the damaged conduits, the backup systems, and the exits. "Follow me," he shouted to Lyra, Tico, and Moro. His allies responded immediately, trusting his calm authority. Together, they moved quickly through the corridors, avoiding the panicked bullies who were stumbling through the chaos. The damage was worse than he initially expected. Sparks flew from broken panels, and smoke curled upward in thick, choking tendrils. The life support system was critical. If it failed entirely, the entire facility could become uninhabitable within hours. Ethan's mind raced. He needed to stabilize the system, and fast. He gestured to Tico. "Hold the panel steady while I reroute the conduit." Tico's claws clicked against the metal as he adjusted the heavy panel. Ethan moved quickly, connecting a temporary bypass using exposed wiring. Sparks hissed, but he stayed focused. Morrow shifted his gelatinous body to form a support under a loose pipe, preventing it from falling. Lyra, using her wings to hover, relayed instructions from the control console to the group. Meanwhile, Krath and the bullies were nearby, watching. For the first time, they did not try to interfere. They were unsure what to do. The human, small and soft-spoken, was acting with calm authority, and the consequences of interfering could be catastrophic. Ethan completed the bypass just as a surge of energy threatened to overload the system. With a small adjustment, he stabilized the flow. The sparks died down, and the lights slowly returned to their normal glow. The life support system hummed steadily once more. The guards arrived moments later, scanning the area with glowing eyes. "Human," one muttered, astonished. You fixed it." Ethan nodded calmly. "It was not just me. We worked together. Observation, cooperation, and careful action. Anyone can do this if they stay calm." The prisoners around him whispered. Respect for the human grew even stronger. For the first time, Ethan realized the bullies were truly regretting underestimating him. Their arrogance had led them to doubt someone they had mocked just days ago. Krath stepped forward, his head lowered slightly. "Human," he said cautiously. You saved us all." Ethan met his gaze evenly. "Yes, and it was possible because we worked together. Even those who seemed small or weak have value." The other prisoners murmured in agreement. The gelatinous Morrow nodded. Tico's eyes gleamed with understanding, and Lyra fluttered her wings nervously but with pride. Later that day, the warden of the detention complex approached Ethan. The massive alien had a stern face and glowing yellow eyes. "Human," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "You have demonstrated something rare. Calm intelligence under pressure. You have earned respect not only from your allies but from the guards as well." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir. I only did what I thought necessary to keep everyone safe." The warden studied him for a long moment. "Most prisoners would panic or try to fight. You acted wisely. Your species has potential far beyond what many believe." Ethan's heart lifted slightly. Recognition from authority, especially alien authority, was rare, but he remained modest. "Thank you, sir. I only hope to continue learning and helping." Word of Ethan's heroics spread quickly throughout the prison. Even the most arrogant prisoners began to treat him differently. Some approached him cautiously, asking questions. Others offered help in small ways, respecting his leadership without overtly challenging the bullies. Krath, however, was not entirely humbled. He and his group still held pride in their strength, but even they now knew they could not rely solely on power. Every time they tried to intimidate him, Ethan's cleverness thwarted them. By evening, the situation in the complex had stabilized. Ethan gathered his small group of allies in a quiet corner. Lyra fluttered her wings nervously. "Human, you are different. We have never seen anyone act so calmly under danger." Ethan smiled gently. "Humans survive in unexpected situations by thinking first. Strength is useful, but strategy and courage matter more." Tico nodded. "You lead without fighting. That is impressive." Morrow wobbled slightly, his gelatinous body rippling. "We always thought humans were weak. Now we see, maybe we underestimated them." Ethan's smile widened faintly. "Perhaps. But now you see what humans are capable of, and perhaps you will remember it in the future. Krath approached quietly, no horns raised, no sneer on his face. "Human," he said, his voice low, "you have changed things. For the better, perhaps. But do not think the others will accept it easily." Ethan met his gaze evenly. "I do not need everyone to accept it. I only need to act with reason, fairness, and courage. Others will see it eventually." That night, Ethan lay on his bunk, thinking about the future. The Galactic Detention Complex was a place of rules, routines, and strength, but it was also a place of opportunity. Observation, careful action, and calm intelligence could influence outcomes far beyond what brute strength alone could achieve. He thought about the bullies, the timid prisoners, and even the guards. All had roles to play. By guiding actions carefully, humans could demonstrate their potential, not as conquerors, but as thinkers, problem solvers, and leaders. The night passed quietly. Ethan's reputation had grown. The bullies no longer mocked him openly, though some muttered complaints in private. The other prisoners whispered of his cleverness and bravery. Even the guards had begun to note his presence as remarkable. For the first time, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment. Humans had a reputation for resourcefulness, courage, and ingenuity, and he was proving it in a place full of species far larger, stronger, and more intimidating. Tomorrow, he thought, would bring new challenges. But for now, the crisis had been averted, respect had been earned, and the bullies had begun to regret their arrogance. Humanity, in all its cleverness and courage, had made a mark in a galaxy that had underestimated them. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling calm and focused. The Galactic Detention Complex was no longer just a prison. It was a place where humans could shine. And shine he would, carefully, cleverly, and without losing the principles that made him human. The night hummed with quiet activity as the complex settled. Somewhere, in the shadows, Krath and the bullies whispered among themselves, beginning to understand something important. A human is not weak, a human is clever, and underestimating a human could be their greatest mistake. And Ethan Cole, small in size but immense in courage and intelligence, had already proven that lesson. The Galactic Detention Complex woke to a new day, but the air felt different. Rumors had spread overnight. Whispers of a small human who had outsmarted bullies, calmed crises, and saved the lives of prisoners and guards alike were everywhere. Ethan Cole, calm and observant as always, knew the reputation he had earned was fragile. Arrogance still lingered among some aliens, but today he would show that respect was well-deserved. Ethan stepped out of his small cell for morning assembly. The courtyard, usually noisy and chaotic, fell silent as many prisoners turned to watch him. Lyra fluttered near his shoulder, Tico followed closely, and Moro moved silently beside them. Together they had become a subtle but effective group of allies. Krath and his bullies approached. They no longer sneered openly, but their eyes betrayed a complicated mix of pride and regret. The horned leader spoke first, his voice measured. "Human, it seems, we underestimated you. Perhaps too much." Ethan's calm blue eyes met Krath's yellow gaze. "We all underestimate others at times," he said gently, "but respect is earned, not assumed. I only did what any thoughtful being could do. Act with intelligence, courage, and fairness." Krath grunted. "Even so, your actions have changed the way many of us think." Other prisoners murmured in agreement. Some even approached Ethan. Hesitant but respectful, they sought advice, guidance, or simply the wisdom of someone who had shown human cleverness firsthand. The warden, massive and authoritative, descended from the elevated observation deck. His yellow eyes glowed as he scanned the crowd. "Ethan Cole," he said, his deep voice echoing, "you have done what few could. You have saved lives, organized prisoners, and influenced your peers with calm intelligence. You have shown the strength of your species. Ethan bowed slightly. Thank you, sir. I only acted as I could, and with the cooperation of others. The warden nodded. Still, it is clear humans are underestimated. Others will remember today. You have proven that even a small human can lead and inspire. Krath stepped forward again. Human, I admit it. I was wrong. You are clever, brave, and not weak. I apologize for underestimating you. Ethan smiled faintly. Thank you, Krath. I hope that in the future, you and others will judge beings by their actions and their minds, not just their size or strength. The bullies exchanged looks, some grudgingly nodding. The complex had shifted. Where once human weakness had been assumed, now human intelligence and courage were respected. Later that day, the warden organized a small ceremony in the courtyard to acknowledge Ethan's contributions. Prisoners gathered quietly, watching the human who had proven them wrong. Even the guards, towering and intimidating, stood respectfully as the warden spoke. Today, the warden said, we recognize Ethan Cole. He has shown courage, intelligence, and leadership. His actions have saved lives, prevented disaster, and demonstrated that humans are capable of far more than many believed. Let this be remembered. Applause, in the form of murmurs, clicks, and wing flutters, echoed through the courtyard. Ethan remained calm, bowing slightly. He did not boast. Humans did not need to. Respect, once earned, spoke louder than words. Krath approached, now genuinely humbled. Human, he said quietly. Perhaps there is much for us to learn from your kind. Ethan nodded. Perhaps. But the lesson is simple. Strength is not only physical. Intelligence, courage, and fairness matter even more. Even some of the timid prisoners now approached him, offering small gestures of friendship. Lyra fluttered beside him, smiling faintly. Tico gave a respectful nod, and Moro shifted his gelatinous body in approval. Humans had a way of bringing out the best in others, even in the most unlikely places. The bullies, Krath included, began to show subtle cooperation. Instead of trying to intimidate or dominate, they worked quietly alongside other prisoners, guided by Ethan's calm example. The detention complex felt more organized, more stable, and far more respectful than it had in months. Later, as Ethan moved through the corridors, a guard approached him. Human, he said cautiously. Your actions have changed more than just the prisoners. Even we guards have noticed. You think, you act, you lead, not with fear but with intelligence. It is unusual. Ethan smiled faintly. I am glad my actions can help. But leadership is not about power or fear. It is about responsibility and understanding. The guard nodded, his glowing eyes dimming slightly with thought. Yes, unusual, but effective. That evening, Ethan returned to his cell. He thought about the journey so far, from being underestimated, mocked, and harassed, to becoming a figure of respect and quiet leadership. Humans had a way of surviving in harsh, unknown conditions. They adapted, learned, and influenced others without brute force. Lyra hovered near him. Human, what will you do now? She asked. The others respect you, even the bullies. Ethan thought carefully. I will continue to act with intelligence and fairness. I will help when I can, and learn when I must. Respect is earned through consistent action, not a single event. Tico added, Then we will follow you, human. Your guidance has shown us how to act wisely. Moro rippled in agreement. Yes, clever human. You have changed many things. As night fell over the Galactic detention complex, Ethan lay on his bunk, reflecting. The bullies had been humbled, alliances had been formed, and respect had been earned. Humans had proven themselves not through violence or intimidation, but through courage, observation, and intelligence. Krath and the others were quiet now. Their arrogance had been tempered by experience. The whispers of prisoners spoke of the small human who had outsmarted them all. Even the guards had begun to acknowledge human potential. Ethan realized that this experience was more than survival. It was a lesson in leadership, influence, and understanding. Humans, though small and seemingly weak, had a unique ability to inspire, organize, and solve problems. The night passed peacefully. Ethan's thoughts wandered to the future. Beyond this detention complex lay the galaxy, full of unknown species, challenges, and opportunities. Humans, underestimated by many, had the potential to thrive wherever they went. He closed his eyes with calm confidence. The bullies had learned a lesson in humility, the prisoners had learned a lesson in cooperation, and the guards had learned a lesson in respect. Humanity had proven itself once again, clever, brave, and enduring. As the first lights of dawn touched the metallic walls of the complex, Ethan rose. Today would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new ways to show that humans were more than they seemed. Somewhere in the galaxy, he thought, the stories of a clever, brave human in the Galactic detention complex would spread. A human who had been underestimated, bullied, and ignored, but who had earned respect, not through fear, but through intelligence, courage, and calm leadership. And the bullies, Krath included, would never forget the lesson. Never underestimate a human. Ethan stepped into the corridor, ready for whatever came next, knowing that humanity's light could shine even in the darkest places, and that one clever, brave human could change the course of many lives in ways no one had expected.